In 2001, Rockstar Games released Grand Theft Auto 3, one of the most controversial video games ever made, because of its violent content and because the player is rewarded for bad behaviour, including killing people. But in this video, we're going to find out if it's possible to beat the game without killing anyone. But first, here are the rules. Rule number 1, the player, that's me, must not kill anybody at all. Rule number 2, if you pause the game and go to the stats screen, you'll notice that the game keeps track of the number of people that the player has killed. For rule number 2, this stat must stay at 0. Now that brings me on to a sub-rule. The following 3 things do not make the stat increase. Killing someone by pushing their vehicle into the water, killing someone by pushing another vehicle into them, and killing someone by deliberately parking a destroyed vehicle that I'm driving right beside them. However, even though none of those things make the stat increase, technically it is still the player who's doing the killing, and therefore I won't be doing any of those things. Rule number 3, don't kill myself. If I get killed by other people, that is acceptable, but doing things like this, or this, is not. Rule number 4, I don't need to complete any of the optional missions. I'll only complete the missions that advance the story. Specifically, these are the missions that I'll be completing. Rule number 5, major glitches should only be used if absolutely necessary, and that includes using replays, instapasses, and the mega jump glitch. And rule number 6, I must not use cheats or mods, except widescreen fix and silent patch. As you've probably guessed by now, I'll be playing the PC version. And now, without further ado, let's begin. The first 2 missions, Give Me Liberty and Luigi's Girls, are extremely easy because killing is not required. Don't Spank My Bitch Up is the first mission in which you do have to kill somebody, but luckily you can find him in Portland Harbour. And what else can you find in a harbour? That's right, water. And are there such things as swimming lessons in this city? No, there are not. After passing that mission, I got the hospital and police station tutorials out of the way. I'll explain why later. After getting a cop car, I almost had a heart attack. Moving on to Drive Misty for me, in which I nearly had another heart attack at one point. Thank God for that tree. The next mission is Mike Lips's Last Lunch, in which we have to kill Mike Lips Farelli by planting a bomb in his car, which does, of course, count as a kill caused by the player. So does that mean this challenge is over already? The answer is no. And why is that? Because it's possible to skip that mission by doing what's known as an instapass. As the name suggests, an instapass allows you to pass a mission instantly. In this game, there's a variable called onMission, which can be at 0 or 1. When onMission is set to 0, that means you're in free roam mode, and when onMission is set to 1, it means you're doing a mission. But there are ways to trick the game into setting onMission to 0, even though there's still a mission running. That allows you to have 2 missions running at the same time, and this will allow me to instapass Mike Lips's Last Lunch. In this game, taxi driver, paramedic, vigilante and firefighter are broken. When you're in a cop car, keep holding down the side mission button, get out of the car, get in an ambulance, get back in the cop car, and now release the side mission button. When you release the button, both vigilante and paramedic will try to start at the same time, but instead, one of them will get duplicated. In my case, it happened to vigilante. If you look closely at the radar, you can see 2 green blips because there are now 2 instances of vigilante running at the same time. Now, the next part of the plan is to get wasted or busted. Normally I just drown myself because that's quicker, but as mentioned during the intro, that's against the rules, so I get busted instead. Whoa, what happened there? I did what's known as a dupe and fail. Allow me to explain. If you manage to get 2 instances of Vigilante running at the same time and then get wasted or busted, 1 instance of Vigilante will fail and end, but for the other instance, the game thinks that the criminal has been eliminated and that instance of Vigilante will keep running. Now, back to my run. The reason I got the hospital and police station tutorials out of the way is because those actually set the on mission variable to 1, and if I was to accidentally start those at this point in my plan, it would all go wrong. So when I got busted with 2 instances of Vigilante running at the same time, 1 instance failed, but the other one is still running, and now the game has set on mission to 0 because it thinks I'm not on a mission when I actually am. So, now that the game thinks I'm not on a mission even though Vigilante is still running, I can insta-pass Mike Lipps' last lunch. Behold. You saw that, didn't you? Yes, I got the mission passed message during the cutscene. But even though I also got the mission failed message afterwards, the mission is still passed and I can move on to farewell Chunky Lee Chong. So how did that work? Well, unfortunately, that's something that I'm not knowledgeable on, so I'm not going to embarrass myself by providing incorrect information. However, the YouTuber named Zazaza691, or Vofel, has some very detailed videos about various glitches in the 3D GTA games. I'll put the link to those videos in the description. By the way, another way to insta-pass Mike Lipps' last lunch is by holding down the side mission button while collecting a rampage icon and then start Mike Lipps' last lunch with Vigilante. However, insta-passing it like this will cause Vigilante to be permanently switched off. As you saw, in my run, I insta-passed it by duplicating Vigilante, and if you do what I did, you can start Vigilante again, which is very important because we'll be doing some more Vigilante trickery later on. So, before I do farewell Chunky Lee Chong, I get in a cop car just to make sure I can start Vigilante again. And I can. On to the next mission. When you approach Chunky, he always runs towards one of the perennials parked nearby, and luckily they're both unlocked, so we can just get in the car before he does and slowly lure him towards the water. Now, my original plan was to leave his car right at the edge, which would cause him to drive himself into the drink, but he got stuck, so no such luck.
Nice rhymes, man.
Time for plan B. After I dragged him out of the car, he ran around for a few seconds before coming to a complete stop. This allowed me to trick his triad buddies into using him for baseball practice. Van heist is nice and simple, no killing necessary here, and I do the classic speedrun strat involving blowing up a vehicle just in front of the van to allow me to steal it early, obviously making sure there aren't any nearby pedestrians who might get caught in the explosion. No issues with Cipriani's chauffeur, apart from leaving my car a bit too close to the first blue marker. Just don't squish those pesky triads at the laundrette, no matter how much Tony hates their guts. Taking out the laundry involves destroying 3 laundry vans. Fortunately, you can hijack these vans, and if you do, the drivers get lost, allowing you to get the job done without spilling any blood. Well, I suppose that's one way to wash clothes. In the pickup, we have to kill 6 triads, but the water is pretty close by, so I think you know what's coming. I noticed that if you get too far away from these triads, they'll get in vehicles, which can be useful. As you can see. And that's another 5 people on a one-way trip to Davy Jones's locker. No killing necessary in Salvatore's called a meeting, but I had to be extra careful not to run anybody over because I'm driving a long vehicle. Also, the entrance to the mansion grounds is guarded by some triads who are on foot, but you can avoid them by simply driving behind the buildings to the south. In Chaperone, when I got to the party, I decided to move the other cars behind a wall to stop the people from getting in them. The reason I did that is because when I checked the stats after a previous attempt at this mission, it said I'd killed somebody. It turns out that in this game, if somebody's death is caused by their vehicle exploding when that person is still inside it, the player gets blamed. I wasn't able to watch the footage to see what happened because I deleted the recording by mistake, but I'm guessing somebody accidentally flipped their car upside down or something. Thankfully, parking those cars where I parked them worked. Cutting the grass is pretty straightforward because Mr. Big Mouth himself ends up at Portland Harbour. Just carefully lure him into an accidental watery grave. Next up is Triads and Tribulations. Oh boy, this one's annoying. We have to kill 3 Triad warlords and all of them have other Triads helping them. And because of the gang war, you have to be more careful than ever to avoid running anybody over. Luckily, Tony sends a couple of guys with you to give you a hand, and I managed to figure out how they behave. They'll attack anybody who attacks you. You can also make them attack somebody by simply standing right beside that person. I almost died at the first warlord because my friends couldn't shoot for shit. After getting a quick refill of health from the hospital, I went to deal with the second guy, and amazingly I didn't die, even without any armour. Before making my way to the fish factory, I got myself a Triad fish van to get through the gate. I am aware that your teammates will sometimes warp through the wall if you jump over it, but they don't always do that, so that's why I decided to play it safe. So, with full health, full armour, a fish van, and an Uzi-wielding mafioso in tow, we were ready to face the final warlord. I did my best to try and make the warlord shoot me so that my teammate would attack the correct person. Success! Now my original plan was to just grab another van and drive off, but I got lazy and decided to death warp instead. The Triads murdered me, so that doesn't count as the player doing the killing. Tony's final mission is Blowfish, which is very easy and doesn't involve any killing at all. Normally I would drive through the Hobo Tunnel to get to my destination faster, but that's not an option here. Certainly not with this big ass truck. At the fish factory, just make sure you get away from the truck as quickly as possible to stop any Triads from getting caught in the truck explosion. After Death Warp number 2, I had something extremely important to do. It was time to get myself a bulletproof cheetah from El Burro's first mission, Turismo. Start the race, then grab a fire truck and use it to block the road outside your hideout when the cheetahs come round the corner. The cheetah almost escaped at one point, but eventually my mission was accomplished. This cheetah isn't just bulletproof, but fireproof and explosion proof as well. And I know it's possible to make it damage proof by using the car crusher glitch, but I chose not to do that. So, with a special cheetah now in my possession, and after replenishing my health and armour, the time had come to begin the most horrible mission in Portland in this challenge: bomb the base. So what's the story with this mission? You have to protect 8-Ball as he makes his way along the deck of a ship, which is heavily guarded by the cartel. Obviously we can't do that so easily in this challenge. The good news is that the cartel actually spawn at the start of the mission and you can lure them away from the ship. But the bad news is that if any of the cartel die before you stop in the blue marker to let 8-Ball out of your car, the mission fails. Now I know you're thinking, Stu, just let 8-Ball out of the car and then lure the cartel away. Well, that's actually not a good idea because, annoyingly enough, the cartel have a very nasty habit of suddenly turning their attention to 8-Ball and shooting him instead. Not only that, but 8-Ball thinks it's an absolutely wonderful idea to wait uncomfortably close to some explosive barrels, and there's a very good chance that the cartel's bullets will miss you and hit the barrels instead. And reason number 3 is 8-Ball starts making his way onto the ship when the first enemy dies. So the best thing to do is to just let 8-Ball stay in the car and lure the cartel away from the ship as carefully as possible. My preferred strategy is to get them behind the warehouses to the north of the ship. Once you've dealt with the first 5 enemies here, it's safer to lure the remaining enemies off the ship one at a time. and it's simply because these guys are located further away from the ramp that takes you off the ship, and there are some gaps in the ship's rails. I found that the cartel always seem to run in a straight line towards you. If you try to lure too many of them off the ship at once, there's a good chance that one of them will accidentally end up in the drink. And by the way, don't let the cartel get blown up by these barrels, otherwise the game will think you were the one who caused their deaths. While I was working hard to lure the cartel away from the ship, I noticed that some of them had got stuck and were having seizures, which is good because when they're in that situation, they genuinely can't do anything else, so you don't have to worry about them accidentally drowning themselves or something. If, like me, you choose to lure them behind the warehouses, they will likely eventually find their way back around to the ship, forcing you to lure them away again. It is what it is. Eventually, I decided to let 8-Ball out of the car. Now see those guys who are stuck under the stairs? I wanted to use one of the cartel cruisers to stop those guys from shooting 8-Ball when he starts making his way onto the ship. But I found out the hard way that getting out of your vehicle will unstick those guys, but luckily they came after me, not 8-Ball, so I just had to lure them behind the warehouse again. And at this point, there was only one guy left on the ship. Remember, 8-Ball starts making his way onto the ship when one of the enemies dies, and Billy No Mates right here was my target. Despite his stubbornness, I was eventually able to lure him into the murky depths. Now, once 8-Ball starts making his move, the cartel focus on him. He took a hefty amount of damage on that ramp, but once he was on the ship, there were no more issues because the cartel forgot how their guns work, and some of them decided to show me what lemmings do. Which is fitting given that Rockstar North did make lemmings back when they were called DMA Design. Phew, it's finally over. On my way back to save the game, this happened. That was far too close for comfort. Before I began the next mission, I put my cheetah back in my garage. For now. Believe me, Bomb the Base isn't the only mission in which that car will come in handy. Last Requests isn't one of them, but Sayonara Salvatore certainly is. Salvatore doesn't leave the club right away, so I had plenty of time to get my cheetah. My preferred strategy is this. Let the Mafia spot you at the back door, then make your way up north. That's where Salvatore's convoy spawns. There are 3 cars in the convoy. If you let the Mafia spot you, 2 of those cars will stop and a couple of guys will get out to attack you. I wanted to lure both of those guys behind the wall at Hepburn Heights, but one of them got knocked over and survived, so I decided to just head back to the club and hope for the best. The car that doesn't stop in Hepburn Heights is the one that picks up Salvatore. I used my cheetah to turn that car towards the back door because I wanted to make it get stuck after Salvatore gets picked up. But it wasn't until I went to the back door again and got out of my car when Salvatore finally left the club, using the front door. I wasn't able to get the car stuck in the alley, but I still managed to block the car for long enough, which makes everybody get out. At this point, Salvatore tries to kill you, and he'll get in a vehicle if you go too far away from him, just like the triads in the pickup. I was hoping to trick him into blowing himself up by shooting a tall vehicle with his minigun, M16, but no dice. So instead, I tried to let him sleep with a fish. And after narrowly avoiding sleeping with a fish myself, the stars aligned. On my way back to save, it almost happened again. Same pedestrian too. Before saving, I got myself a taxi. You'll find out why very soon. Moving on to Under Surveillance, and I'm sure a lot of people are wondering just how I'm supposed to complete this one, simply because of this. Even if I could get onto those ledges without using mods, I still wouldn't be able to lure those guys to their deaths, because each ledge has a barrier on it to stop them from falling. So it's time to do some more dupe and failing. This is where the taxi comes in. I hold down the side mission button, get out of the taxi, start a rampage, get back in the taxi, and when I release the button, taxi driver starts, even though there's already an active mission, the rampage. And when I cancel taxi driver, I can now start under surveillance with the rampage still running. I wasn't kidding when I said this game's vehicle side missions are broken. After starting under surveillance, I now have to wait for the rampage timer to end, and when it does, I start the mission again, which means I now have 2 instances of the same mission running at the same time. Now remember what I said earlier when I was duping Vigilante. If you have 2 instances of under surveillance running at the same time and then get wasted or busted, 1 instance of the mission will fail, but that causes the game to think that the enemies have been killed in the other instance of the mission, which makes it pass. And because killing the enemies is the only thing that you have to do in that mission, that's why this works. And now, when I get back to the condo after buying some more armour, you'll see that I'm now able to move straight on to Paparazzi Purge. Now obviously I can't kill the reporter using the police boat's machine guns, or any other weapon for that matter, which means I have to sit through the entire boat chase. However, once again I can take advantage of the lack of swimming lessons in this town. If you chase the reporter for long enough, he'll eventually stop his boat at the same place as where you find the police boat, before running up the steps and getting in a car. Well, a car is what I'm using for my plan. As always, NPCs are too dumb to make their way around obstacles. I rest my case. Payday for Ray is just fine, there's nobody to kill. Just drive fast, beat the clock, and avoid making accidental pavement pizza. Now, silence the sneak. Once McCaffrey's sentinel is a certain distance away from the witness protection house, the doors unlock, so I use my cheetah to scrape against the sentinel and break the doors off. By the way, you'll notice I got an insane stunt bonus right here. This game has a lot to answer for with regards to that moment during my Titan Thrice playthrough. Soon McCaffrey ended up going down the hill and scraping against the wall. When I caught up with them, the driver made a U-turn, allowing me to jack the car, which made McCaffrey himself do a runner. The cops were pretty useless, but eventually McCaffrey realised he had to have a bath. Time for arms shortage. There are quite a few enemies to kill during this mission. Most of them come through the front gate, but some of them come from the back left corner. So before they arrived, I used my cheetah to block that corner, and then used this mission's bulletproof barracks truck to block the gate. And it just so happens that one of the enemies has Molotovs, so we end up having a case of friendly fire, ha ha. A few seconds later I reversed the truck and the Molotov guy was still alive, which made the cartel have an even bigger barbecue. Just a few enemies left, but we were able to make short work of them. And when I say we, I mean Phil Cassidy and his fully automatic cheese grater. No killing necessary in the next mission, evidence dash. And I decided to destroy my car in the construction site, because that's where I can find a cartel cruiser, which I need for the next mission, Liberator. It's not always unlocked, but it was on this occasion. Right, Liberator. The bulletproof cheetah will certainly come in handy for this mission. I left the cheetah on the route between my hideout and the compound in Aspatria. Then I made a quick on-foot trip back to my garage to pick up the cartel cruiser, which I need to unlock the gate. After going back and forth between both vehicles, because I didn't want them to get erased from the game's memory, I was soon able to use the cruiser to keep the gate open, allowing me to bring my cheetah inside. Now the garages in here only open when you're on foot, which means I have to learn how it feels to be a piece of Swiss cheese. With the gentleman in my car, and after narrowly avoiding reversing into the cartel, we were in the clear. Next up, Wakagashira Wipeout. In this mission we have to kill Kenji by either running him over while driving a cartel cruiser, or using a rocket launcher to blast the floor underneath. But we can't do either of those things, remember? So what do we do? Well, actually, it's not just about what we do, it's also about what this guy does. During this mission, that guy sometimes gets in the car which is parked right beside him, and if he does, he starts chasing you. So all we have to do is head back down and drive underneath the spot where Kenji is standing, which will trick the guy in the car into accidentally killing Kenji for us. It took a few tries, but eventually the stars aligned once more. Bingo! And you learn something new every day, and that day I learned that if Kenji is the only one who dies there, you don't get a wanted level. Oh dear, so it wasn't the cartel who killed Kenji. The next mission, A Drop in the Ocean, only involves collecting packages and evading the long arm of the law. Grand Theft Aero, on the other hand, does involve killing. At the airport, you must kill the 4 enemies in the hangar in order to move on to the next part of the mission. To make these guys follow you out of the hangar, use a bulletproof vehicle to very quickly drive in an anti-clockwise direction around the plane and then out of the hangar. You must be quick. If you're too slow, the cartel will just stay in the hangar, and or the plane will get destroyed by the prick with the massively overpowered M16. Now all you have to do is slowly but surely lure all 4 of them into the water. Luring members of the cartel away. Have I done this before? Can't remember. At one point a random sentinel just came out of nowhere. I've never seen that before. Eventually, the cartel quartet were in the drink. Wow, Davy Jones's locker is pretty popular today. So, those 4 are the only people who have to die in this mission. You don't have to kill anybody at the construction site. Just use the cartel cruiser to get on top of the hut, then jump over the wall and run straight to the elevator. Just make sure you have enough health and armor before doing this, otherwise the enemy closest to the elevator might kill you before you regain control of Claude. Once gameplay resumes, all the cartel will automatically die, so just cruise your way back down to the end of the mission. Moving on to bait. Now remember what I said earlier about the game thinking it's your fault when a vehicle blows up with people still inside it? Well, that can be a problem during this mission. Your objective is to lure 3 cars into a Yakuza trap in Pike Creek. Each car contains 4 cartel members. Here's what happened when I lured the first car. One guy successfully got out of the car, but the other 3 weren't so lucky and got obliterated by the Yakuza destroying the car before they could complete the exit vehicle animation, which added 3 kills to the stat. Luckily, the solution is pretty simple. Don't lure the cars too close to the Yakuza. That way, all 4 of them will have a better chance to get out. If you lure them too close to the Yakuza, there'll be too many of them shooting at the car at once. The cartel do sometimes get back in the car, but they will get out again if you simply drive near them. When I lured the 3rd group into the trap, the car stopped right in front of a shotgunner, and at that range it only takes 2 shotgun shots to blow up a vehicle. But very luckily for me, he forgot how to pull the trigger. Now the only downside to not luring the cartel too close is the cartel will be able to kill the Yakuza more easily, and the mission fails if all the Yakuza die. Right here, we had a 1 versus 1 situation, AK-47 versus M16, but thankfully, the cartel guy was more interested in coming after me. Espresso to go is yet another mission involving no killing at all. Just wreck the stalls by ramming them with a vehicle and avoid accidentally hitting the cartel guys. Like that. Thankfully it wasn't fatal. No killing necessary during Sam either. Before going to the airport, I had to grab a rocket launcher from Phil's place because my stupid ass forgot to do so at the end of arms shortage. You can ignore what Asuka says about airport security, because driving onto the runway and avoiding the cartel is pretty damn easy. Stu, maybe you're the dunce for forgetting the rocket launcher. Oh, shut up. When you're waiting for the plane to arrive, you'll notice that one of the enemies gets in the cartel cruiser and shows his friend what it's like to kiss the underside of a vehicle before taking a dip. Destroying the plane doesn't add any kills to the stat, simply because the pilot doesn't exist. After evading the boys in blue and getting back to the construction site, I took my cheetah with me to Shoreside Vale for the final story mission, the exchange. Just 1 mission left, folks. At the start, you can just go through the front gate without killing anybody at all. At the dam entrance, just ram the cars out of the way and avoid hitting the cartel by mistake. Now, I chose a different method to get to the roof where Maria is waiting. First, I drove far enough along the dam to make the mission progress properly. Then I got a stinger from Cedar Grove before driving to the bottom of the dam building. With a stinger, you can, believe it or not, just drive up the grey wall between the building and the cliff. In case you're wondering why I'm doing this, it's because the helicopter drops bombs on you, and there are explosive barrels on the dam, so by doing this, I'm preventing the cartel on the dam from getting killed by the barrel explosions, which the game blames the player for, remember? After getting the rocket launcher, I made my way down the stairs to trigger the cutscene. This makes Maria spawn and allows me to bring the helicopter down with a well-placed rocket, being very careful not to accidentally catch the cartel in the blast. And then, once the helicopter is destroyed, the final cutscene will play when you go near Maria. You can skip the credits once the artists' names have appeared. Mission passed. Stu, you don't sound very happy. What's the matter? What's the matter? I'll tell you. That is the matter. But how can that be? When the helicopter blew up, did 2 enemies on the dam get caught in the explosion? Nope, that's not what happened. Okay, so what did happen then? It turns out that whenever you destroy a helicopter in this game, 2 kills are automatically added to the stat. Holy shit. You mean we've made it all the way to the final mission only to find out that this challenge is impossible? You're kidding, Stu. It's okay, you can settle down, because I am kidding. As you know, normally to pass the exchange, you have to rescue Maria and destroy the helicopter. However, it is actually possible to pass the mission without destroying the helicopter. Let me show you how it's done. First, I get myself a fire truck, then I hold down the side mission button, start a rampage, and then get back in the fire truck. This allows me to start Firefighter with a rampage running at the same time, and then cancel Firefighter. Now that the game thinks I'm not on a mission, I can now start the exchange with the rampage still running. After doing that, I get back in the truck and wait for the rampage timer to end. And when it does, I must now keep the side mission button held down again, but for much longer this time. In other words, I'm holding Firefighter. With my finger remaining on the side mission button for now, I start the exchange again, so I now have 2 instances of the same mission running at the same time. After jumping backwards away from the mansion, you'll notice that the camera pointed towards the dam, not the sky. The reason that happened is because even though the exchange has been duplicated, only one of Catalina's helicopters can be in the game's memory at any one time. Now I grab a new vehicle and head back to my hideout to pick up my cheetah, which I will definitely need for the next part of my plan. And remember, I must not release the side mission button just yet. The next step is to get to the dam. Now because the exchange has been duplicated, you'll notice that there are more vehicles than usual here. And don't worry, that death right there wasn't caused by me. He blew himself up by shooting the cartel cruiser. Now, here's where the magic starts to happen. I trigger the cutscene, and then when I see Catalina running towards the helicopter, I can finally release the side mission button. If done correctly, Firefighter will get cancelled because I'm not in a fire truck anymore. Now this will cause 3 other things to happen. 1, the cutscene gets cancelled. 2, the helicopter won't take off. And 3, Maria won't disappear. She stays on the roof. And that is very important for the next part of the plan. I quickly check the stats just to make sure I haven't killed anybody, and I haven't, all according to plan. Now, you may remember that earlier on in this video, I said we'll be doing some more vigilante trickery later on. Well, the time has finally come. I get a cop car, hold down the side mission button again, start another rampage, and then release the button to start and cancel Vigilante, which will, once again, allow me to have 2 missions running at once. Now I have to wait for the rampage timer to end, but before it ends, I start Vigilante again, but don't cancel it. And now that the rampage is over, I'm able to start the exchange for the 3rd time, but with Vigilante running at the same time. Success! Now take a look at the radar. What do you see? That's right, 2 green blips. One of those blips represents the vigilante criminal, but the other one represents Maria. And how do I know that? Because the blip that represents the helicopter is brown, not green. And so that means I've done everything right so far. After the short cutscene here, it looks like that green blip has turned brown, but it hasn't, don't worry. The green one is still there, it's just in very close proximity to the brown one. Now it's time to get myself another stinger and do some more fancy wall climbing. And then, after getting out of the car, I approach Maria and mission accomplished. That, everybody, is how to pass the exchange without destroying the helicopter. Now just let me fast forward through the final cutscene and the credits until I've skipped them, and wait for it. So, can you beat GTA 3 without killing anyone? The answer is yes. Now, before I end the video, allow me to explain what happened during the exchange. In this game, when you fail a mission, the game runs a cleanup script which gets rid of all the mission related stuff, like characters and vehicles. But luckily for me, there's only a limited amount of mission related stuff that the cleanup script can remove at once. And if there's too much stuff, then that means not everything will get removed by the script. And that's exactly why I duplicated the exchange, to deliberately increase the amount of stuff. And it just so happens that when Maria spawns, there's too much stuff, so the cleanup script won't get rid of her, and that's why she's still on the roof during my run. However, because of the way the exchange is coded, failing the mission normally will get rid of Maria anyway, so that's why we have to abort the mission abruptly by holding Firefighter and then cancelling it during the Get This Thing Airborne cutscene. Doing that doesn't get rid of Maria. And by the way, it's worth mentioning that if you cancel Firefighter at any other point in the mission, the game will crash. Now for the part where I started the exchange for the third time with Vigilante running. Why does that, at that point, allow you to save Maria right from the start? Well, according to the YouTuber Zazaza691, or Vofel, when you combine different missions, you end up getting 2 instances of the last mission that you started. In this case, 2 instances of the exchange, which can cause some interesting effects like instapasses or partial skips. Again, I'll put the link to his series of videos in the description. But the bottom line is, if you do everything that I did during my run, you can complete the exchange without killing anybody. And that, everybody, is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed. Again, I'll put the link to the full run in the description. Thank you so much for watching, stay solid, and don't let the exchange bite.